Liontown, it says there we're on a battery metal opportunity. The reality is we're very focused on lithium. So of those battery metals, we're concentrating on lithium. And we're not more than just an opportunity. We've actually got existing resources which we're taking through to development with an intention to be mining sometime late in 2020, early 2021. The standard disclaimer, I won't dwell on this, but I will bring your attention to it. And then if you want to read it at your own leisure later on, it's available on our website. This slide shows you where we're located. We're very Australian-based. Our head office is in Perth in Western Australia. We have 3 projects, 2 lithium projects in Western Australia and a vanadium project in northwest Queensland. Our most advanced project is the Kathleen Valley project in central Western Australia. We've taken that from initial drilling earlier this year to announcing a maiden resource in September 2 or 3 months ago of 21 million tonnes at 1.4% lithium oxide and 170 parts per million tantalum. We have a scoping study or a PEA well advanced, and as part of that we've completed the initial metallurgical test work. We've confirmed that we can produce a saleable concentrate with a very low iron content, so the product is very clean. We will be releasing the results of our scoping study in January next year, and then we'll move straight into a feasibility study with a decision to mine being targeted for late next year. At Buldania in southern Western Australia, we've made a second significant lithium discovery. Again, we've only started drilling there earlier this year. We've intersected wide zones of ore-grade lithium mineralisation. The objective here is to have a maiden resource published again early next year. In northwest Queensland at Toolabuk, we have a low cost but very significant option on the vanadium space. There's been a lot of historic work done in this area. We've used this historic data to release a maiden resource there as well of 84 million tonnes at 0.3% vanadium pentoxide. We have an exploration target there and an additional 100 million tonnes. So the intention here is to get out there, extend the existing resource and collect sample for metallurgical test work, which will be done in the second half or the first half of next year. All of our projects are either wholly owned or we have 100% of relevant mineral rights. Given that, and all our product is uncommitted, we're not locked up with anyone at the moment, we have no other parties in there. And given that 2 of the major brine producers out of South America are now acquiring hard rock assets in Western Australia, we're very encouraged by the trends we see. This is the Kathleen Valley resource. It's just a breakdown of it. As I said, 21.2 million tonnes at 1.4% lithium oxide and 170 parts per million tantalum. That resource was estimated using a 0.5% cut-off. The reality is the cut-off doesn't matter. The material, you're either in mineralisation or you're not. I do have samples of the material here if anyone wants to see it. But you can increase the cut-off grade to 1% lithium oxide and you actually don't lose a lot of tonnes. In addition to that, compared with other lithium projects around in Western Australia, the tantalum grade is quite high, and that will be a significant part of our revenue going forward. The resource is 75% measured and indicated, which means that we will be able to release the results of our scoping study, particularly the financial parameters. The mineralisation is outcropping and is suitable for open pit mining. It starts at surface, it's shallow dipping. And we're also located on granted mining leases, so a lot of the permitting is already in place. And we're close to existing infrastructures. Producing a spodumene concentrate, it's a bulk commodity. You need access to transport infrastructure, energy infrastructure. We have a power line immediately to the west and a natural gas pipeline immediately to the east. And we're also located in an area where there's a number of underutilised nickel mining camps, so we probably don't even have to build our own camp for a mining operation. I mentioned the grade before, and this is one of the standout features of Kathleen Valley. This is just a plot of our grade, comparing it with a number of our peers, similar sized deposits. And you can see our grade stands head and shoulders above most of the others, which I should point out includes existing mining operations at Mount Cattlin, which is owned by Galaxy Resources, and at Bald Hill, which is mined by Tawana Resources. And this sort of just emphasises a point that I'd like to make. Lithium is a commodity. It's like any other commodities. You've got to be able to mine it for less than you sell it. and having a high grade like that means that we'll be able to ride out a number of any sort of upturn or downturns and upturns in the price cycle going forward. I think if we plotted the tantalum grade as well, you'd see it probably plots very similarly. This is what it looks like. As I said, we're in central Western Australia. We have 2 mineralised swarms, pegmatite swarms, and we have 18 mineralised pegmatites. They're mostly shallow dipping, so they're suitable for open pit mining. And mineralisation is completely open along strike and at depth. So we've defined mineralisation over more than 1 kilometre of strike, down dip more than 1 kilometre. But because of the shallow dip of the pegmatites, we're only talking about a vertical depth of around 150 metres. This is just some cross sections through the Kathleen Valley deposit. You can see most of the mineralisation is high grade. The hot colours, orange and upwards, is greater than 1% lithium oxide, and you'll see that most of the resource is either orange or above. We have multiple shallow dipping pegmatites, ideal for open pit mining. Currently, the deposit optimises down to the base of data, so it's constrained by the depth of drilling, not by the economics of the data we have so far. So you can see here that there's very good potential to increase the resource in the short term and build on that 21 million tonnes we already have. Currently, the pits we are looking at in our optimisation, in our scoping study, basically takes out the entire block model that we have here, and this one as well. So basically, it's constrained by data. So more drilling will add resources and significantly enhance the economics of the project. This is just to further emphasise the resource upside. This is the block model we have at the moment. The yellow lines there, they're actually the outcropping pegmatites, so this confirms that it starts at surface. In the areas in green here are the areas we believe that we can drill, and we'll do this early next year, and to increase the resource to in excess of 30 million tonnes. In addition to that, we have a number of other targets. There's a single hole up here there. Late in the last drilling program, we intersected 4 metres at 1.5 at a shallow depth. There's only a single hole into that pegmatite. There's no follow-up drilling at all, so there's potential to add to the resource there. And the whole system trundles off to the north, or continues going to the north under shallow cover, and there's been zero exploration, even including for gold, in that area. So the upside at Kathleen Valley is exceptional. Moving on to Buldania. It's in southern Western Australia. It's basically the same style of mineralisation as we have at Kathleen Valley. So it's fresh, it's outcropping, and it's spodumene mineralisation. One point I'd just like to make is that there's a lot of pegmatites in the world, and I think people often get confused with pegmatites and lithium. Out of all the pegmatites in the world, probably less than 1% have lithium mineralisation in them, and of that 1%, fewer have spodumene, and of those, fewer are big enough to actually mine. So these pegmatites are, the fact that we've got 2 projects with potentially economic spodumene-bearing pegmatites makes them pretty special. Buldania is located in the same region as existing lithium operations. So we have Neometals up here at Mount Marion and the Bald Hill operation just here. So we're in an established lithium mining region. The geology of our deposit, Buldania, is very, very similar. Again, like Kathleen Valley, the infrastructure is fantastic. We're less than 1 kilometre north of the major east-west highway that runs across Australia, and we're only 30 kilometres east of Norseman, and a major railway line that services the mineral exporting port of Esperance, 200 kilometres to the south. And currently, spodumene concentrate is exported out of Esperance, as well as nickel concentrate. Buldania is part of a much larger land package. We've only had this project for a year, but we've compiled about 650 square kilometres down there, and the exploration upside to discover more of these spodumene-bearing pegmatites is very good. Our main prospect is the Anna pegmatite. This just shows you a plan view of the Anna pegmatite. This is where it outcrops. We've now chased this pegmatite over 1.3 kilometres, and it continues to go. You can see that there's good widths of ore-grade mineralisation, continuous mineralisation up to 58 metres of 1.2%. Within that, there's some nice high-grade stuff in excess of 2%. The very most southern southeastern hole actually also intersected a very high-grade zone of 14 metres of 1.7. So the system is open. We will publish a resource for this part of the Anna pegmatite next year, We need to do more drilling down here, and if we whatever we come up with there's good potential to double it with further drilling down here. This is just what it looks like in a long section. It's a system that dips and plunges off to the south, dips towards me and plunges off to the southeast. This is the area where we will estimate a resource, and then we'll do more drilling down here to double that resource early next year. And just to emphasise, this is the last hole to the southeast, and you just see the grades that we're getting. So the upside here is good. As I mentioned before, Buldania is part of a much larger land package. This is an area about 5 kilometres to the northwest of the pegmatite. It's one we've only just discovered. And you can see there that we have multiple spodumene-bearing pegmatites which have never been recorded before. These are brand new discoveries. These pegmatites are up to 800 metres long and probably bigger than that, and up to 20 metres wide. And these are some of the surface values. So you see this high-grade lithium mineralisation at surface up to 3%. Never been drilled, so we'll get into here and we'll drill test these targets early next year as well. So the potential to increase the resource base at Buldania just keeps growing. So between the two projects, between Kathleen Valley and Buldania, this time next year we're targeting to have a resource base in the company in excess of 50 million tonnes of lithium oxide. Our vanadium project, it's our third project. It's a lower priority, but it's not costing us a lot of money. We applied for this ground early last year before the vanadium price really took off. We have 1,000 square kilometres under tenure. It's an area where there's been a lot of historic exploration for oil shale and vanadium mineralisation. We've used that historic data to define a resource already on our ground at the Cambridge prospect, where we have 84 million tonnes of mineralisation defined. Our tenements adjoin other companies' tenements, and they've also come up with vanadium resources in excess of 2 billion tonnes, which are really only constrained by tenement boundaries and the drilling data. Our intention here is to get out there, is to extend the Cambridge resource. We have an exploration target there in excess of 100 million tonnes on top of that. Like our lithium projects, whereas in an established mining region, infrastructure is very good. This is the railway line that runs between Townsville over here in the east and the historic mining centre of Mount Isa. So again, it's very well located. Oops, what am I doing? This is the resource area. The area in pink is the 84 million tonnes. Immediately adjoining that, we have an exploration target of in excess of 100 million tonnes. We will get out here and we'll drill holes in these areas just to upgrade that resource. But the main emphasis for us is we want to confirm that we can actually get the vanadium out of the rock. I think there's resource potential in our ground in excess of 1 billion tonnes, but it's no point defining 1 billion tonnes if you can't extract the vanadium. So we want to concentrate on the metallurgical test work in the first half of next year to make sure that it's worthwhile. This is what it looks like. It's shallow mineralisation. It's often less than 2 metres below the surface. This section here shows you that it's actually around 10 metres. It's flat. It's soft, so it's free digging, and it's very extensive. And this is why vanadium's so hot at the moment. This is just a price graph since the beginning since the end of 2015. You can see since 2017 there's been a 700% price increase, mainly on the back of its steel requirements. But Martin touched on vanadium flow batteries. These are an established technology, and they're going to grow, and we expect these to put pressure on supply going forward. There's already vanadium flow batteries installed around the world. They're not some sort of science fiction type concept. So we continue to see a strong vanadium price for some time yet. Okay, so our milestones, the objectives going forward is we want to publish our scoping study. As I said, we'll have that out in January next year. Initial results from the metallurgical test work have been so encouraging that we've already commenced the metallurgical drilling that we required for a feasibility study, and that feasibility study will commence after the scoping study. Some of the headline numbers and concepts that we're using for our scoping study is spodumene production of 2 million tonnes of concentrate a year, 2 million tonnes of ore a year, which will produce between 350 and 400,000 tonnes of spodumene concentrate. We have looking at a 10-year mine life, but we're confident we'll get that up above 15 years with further drilling at Kathleen Valley. And Importantly, we're using conservative sort of numbers, so we're looking at a price forecast using dollars of 40 to 50% less than the current price of spodumene concentrate. So it just comes back to we've got to make sure that we can ride out low price cycle, and we're confident we can do that. We're also looking at a number of scenarios. We're looking at lithium plus tantalum. We're looking at lithium only, and we're also looking at just the measured and indicated part of the resource, doing the economics on that, and they all work. So this is a Kathleen Valley is a very robust project, and we're confident that by this time next year we'll be in a position to make a decision to go forward with mining there. Buldania, we need to get, this is probably 6 to 12 months behind Kathleen Valley, but basically it's the same thing. We're looking at putting out a maiden resource in January next year. We're going to work on the regional exploration from now onwards and just get that resource base up. Tullabuck, we want to extend the current resource and then concentrate on metallurgical test work in the first half of next year. Like all companies, we have management and a board with a good track record. We have the cash to fund our scoping study through into next year. And I suppose the thing Ian talked about it, the potential upside for companies like ourselves. Our market capitalisation sits between $25 and $30 million at the moment. If you compare it with a couple of other scenarios, and we never put this in print, but the Kathleen Valley deposit on its own, when you do the numbers, is equivalent to 2.5 to 3 million ounces of gold at 3.5 to 4 grams per tonne. So, and at outcrops, so if you had a gold deposit that was doing that had never been mined, you'd have much higher market cap. And I don't know how many people saw that Albemarle have bought 50% of the Wodgina deposit in northern Western Australia for $1.5 billion. If you use the metrics from that and apply it to Kathleen Valley, then the resource at Kathleen Valley has a value somewhere between $200 and $250 million. So you can see the potential uplift with for Liontown when people actually realise what we've got is very significant. And that's it. Thank you.